All right. Thank you everyone for being here. My name is Miss Jackson. Thank you to Josh and Lizzie and Sydney for representing Milken Alumni and speaking on behalf of Wisconsin. And thank you to our current Milken students for being here too. I'd love to have the alum introduce themselves with kind of a catch us up on the timeline of when you graduated from Milken, and if you've graduated from Wisconsin, you can let us know about that too. If you, I know Sydney is a current student, so Sydney, you can speak to your intended major right now. Josh and Lizzie, you can speak to the major you had at Wisconsin, and just kind of catch us up a little bit in terms of the timeline and what you studied or are studying at Wisconsin. It'd be great.
I can start.
Thanks.
All right, I'm Lizzie. I graduated Milken in 2015 and I graduated Wisconsin in 2019 and I was a marketing major.
Great. Thanks.
Hey guys, I graduated from Milken last year and I'm currently a freshman and I'm studying retailing and consumer behavior with a minor in, well, they don't have minors, they have like certificates. So I'm getting a certificate in digital studies.
I'm Josh. I'm the same age as Lizzie, so I also graduated Milken in 2015 and Wisconsin in 2019, and I was a psychology major.
Okay, awesome, great. And I have a couple questions prepared here, and then I definitely want to be able to open the floor to the current Milken students to ask any questions they have as well. So just to kind of kick things off, I'd love for Sydney, Lizzie, and Josh to kind of reflect on what led you to applying to Wisconsin in the first place. What kind of put it on your radar? Can you speak a little bit about the application process and kind of getting excited about Wisconsin and share a little bit about that process?
Sure. So Wisconsin was always my dream school. I really wanted a Big Ten school and I visited the campus, I think in 10th grade, and I just fell in love with Madison. And Miss Jackson knows that I spent like every day in the college counseling office like crying because I thought I wasn't going to get in. But the application process was fine. It was pretty good. I like wrote my essay, like poured my heart out in the essay, and I emailed the rep, I remember like 50 times. It probably annoyed her a lot. But
yeah, this year, so
oh really? Not Nicole anymore?
I'm sure it's not personal.
Yeah. But yeah.
I can go next. For the application process, I think Sydney will probably have some more pertinent information since it's been a little while, but I honestly don't remember that much. I remember having to write a Why Wisconsin essay, which was fun, honestly, just because some of the other essays I just didn't really like writing. I didn't know what to write about. So it was like, Why Wisconsin? Like, okay, this is a little easier for me. And then in terms of what drew me there, I also kind of wanted that big school, some, big school spirit sort of thing. Good football and basketball teams was, not the number one priority, but definitely a plus. And then also somewhere, that had good academics as well. And I wasn't turned off by like going to, either away from California in general or to the cold, specifically in the Midwest. That was something like I was pretty open-minded towards. And then I visited in, I think 11th grade, might have been 10th, but I think 11th grade. And my older brother had a couple of friends who went there, and I just, went on a tour and went around with them, and also just fell in love with Madison. It's a fantastic place.
Thanks.
So yeah, application wise, same as Josh, like it's been so long, I can barely remember it. I actually applied through the dance program, so mine was a little bit different. I think I had like a separate essay, and then I had to actually go to the school to audition, and like it was a little separate, but basically why I wanted to go there, kind of same as Sydney, that, you know, I kind of knew it was my dream school. I really wanted like a Big Ten fun spirited school. I think coming from Milken, it was such a small school. I wanted to experience more of that big public school, good academics. Greek life was something that I was interested in, I know, going into college. And I really wanted to get away from California. So, you know, I also wanted to be somewhere that I felt like wasn't completely in the middle of nowhere. And when I visited Madison, I was like, you have the capital right here. It's not like, I hate to compare to Indiana, but Indiana like kind of feels a lot more like you're in the middle of nowhere. Madison just felt like a little bit more of a city. And so, you know, I think coming from LA, that was like a little bit like having that like kind of similar to home. Yet you're definitely still in the Midwest, and you go a mile outside of Madison and you're a little more outside of the city. But yeah, those are kind of the main reasons why I wanted to go there.
Okay, great, thank you. And I meant to mention this in the beginning, Josh and Lizzie, I mean, you both have graduated. Can you catch us up to speed a little bit with what life is like for you now, what you're doing, and like how Wisconsin helped you be on the path that you're on today? Whoever wants to go first, go for it.
I'll go first. So yeah, I graduated in 2019, in May of 2019. I was looking to move back to California and specifically LA afterwards. So they had all these career fairs and whatnot, of different companies that came. But a lot of it was a little bit more Midwest geared and a little bit even East Coast sometimes. So the West Coast representation was a little bit slim, but they do have like a, you know, career office and whatnot to help out and all that jazz. I had an internship my junior year of college in the summer at Ticketmaster. And then ended up coming back out here to do the same sort of thing in digital marketing out in Los Angeles. So not, you know, necessarily facilitated through Wisconsin or their career center or anything like that, but definitely, you know, a resource.
Yeah, really going off what Josh said, I feel like I definitely didn't utilize the like career counseling nearly as much as maybe I could have. I went to the career fairs, but kind of same thing. Like I knew I'd wanted to come back to LA, and LA representation was really, it was mostly Midwest and the East Coast. All throughout college, every summer I had a different internship. My freshman year was in LA, sophomore year I was in Israel, and then junior year I was actually in New York. And then after I graduated, I also wanted to move back to LA, and I have been working in marketing at Paul Mitchell. I also always knew I wanted to go in the beauty industry, so that was kind of like a one-track mind for me. But I feel like career counseling wise, I mean, they have a lot of resources, but I would say like I just didn't really use it that much because I wanted to come back to LA and, you know, it wasn't represented that much. However, the Wisconsin alumni is just like such a big spirited group. Like anytime I'm on LinkedIn trying to network or like talk to people, if you say, or if you see someone went to Wisconsin and you say, oh, I went to Wisconsin, they're just so much more likely to actually respond to you and talk to you. So that's something that's really great about it. But like actual career counseling and like the way I got my job was not through Wisconsin.
Thanks for sharing. Before Sydney was the first one that popped on into the Zoom room, and I asked her how this past year has been going, her freshman year, and she said she's living the dream. So my question for all three of you is, what has been your favorite thing for Sydney so far that's made it living the dream for you? And for Josh and Lizzie, what was the best thing about attending Wisconsin? Why don't you, Sydney, speak to that first?
So I think my favorite thing the people on campus are just like amazing and spirited, and everyone is just like obsessed with the school and just so happy to be there. And like I've genuinely made the most like lifelong friends already, and it's only my second semester. I also am a part of a sorority, and I really love being a part of Greek life. I think that's like Wisconsin's Greek life is amazing. You don't really need to be a part of a sorority to have friends. Like like your friend group doesn't necessarily need to be all in one sorority. Like my best friend is in a completely different one, and like our friend group is completely mixed up. So yeah, everyone's just so happy, and Madison is just so beautiful, and there's just so much to do. So yeah.
All right, I can go next. I'm trying to think back to my freshman year and what I liked most then versus what I liked most as like an upperclassman. So I think freshman year, what I liked most and what I appreciated most was aside from like everyone, like she said, just having this ton of school spirit and loving being in Madison and being a Badger and whatnot. I think there was this awesome ability to both socialize and be with friends and go out to parties and whatnot. And then at the same time, with those exact same people that I'd be doing all those things with, I'd be like, okay, I can't do this. I need to study, and be like, oh yeah, me too. And then everyone go to the library for 5 hours on a Thursday night instead. So I think that's a balance that may be a reflection of like the people you surround yourself with, but they're definitely there. And I think a lot of people have a similar experience in which, just like-minded people trying to A, have a great time in college, and B, succeed, and know that the courses you're taking can be, academically rigorous and whatnot.
Yeah, I really agree with both Sydney and Josh on that. I think for me, a lot of it was like the social aspect, and also with Greek life. I was in Greek life for a little bit. It's not so overbearing that it's like you have to be in a sorority or frat to like have a social life. And like Sydney said, like all my friends, like we were all in different sororities, and like that didn't matter. And I loved that. I love that like you kind of had this diversity, and like again with like the school spirit, everyone just like is so in love with the school, and like you can see that. And like game days are just like the best thing of like first semester every year. I don't know if you got to experience that yet, Sydney. I'm so sorry, but hopefully you will. I'm trying to think what else. I think for me it was also like being in a city, like the school is kind of intertwined in the city. And it's also really easy to get around. You can walk everywhere around campus. Lakeshore is a bit far, but you can still walk there. And like even academic wise, like Josh said, like I think it's also the people you surround yourself with. But all my friends were always like, all right, let's go to the library all day. Like it was like such a good balance between that. Yeah, I think that's it.
I think just piggybacking off what Lizzie said about the city, I was going to get to the part about my upperclassmen and then I forgot. But what I really learned to appreciate as I got older was just that like the campus is pretty large and there's a lot to explore on campus itself. And it's really pretty, and there's the lake and all the greenery and whatnot. And then also if you just go the complete other way and you go towards the capital or a little bit more into the city, it's just there's so much to offer. And especially all the stuff around the capital is like something that I didn't really venture out to until I was a little bit older. And there's just all this stuff to offer for like young adults and young professionals that live in the city, as opposed to just young college kids.
Great. It sounds fun. Sign me up. I would love to hear from each of you. What is one tip that you have for a new student starting at the school? It sounds like all of you kind of had a pretty good transition into it. Is there any advice you would have to yourself early freshman year?
Yeah, I can start on this. One thing for me is like I didn't really understand how APs worked, and that like if you get a 4 or 5, like it actually counts as like a class in college. And I think something they tell you in college when you start is like you have all this time to change your major and figure it out, but like realistically you have until like your sophomore year to like figure it out and want to be able to actually graduate on time. I feel like if I didn't figure it out by then, I would have had to do at least an extra year. And even with that, because I ended up applying to the business school, I still had to do like summer classes, and like some semesters I had to load up a lot. So I think one thing is like go in and like talk to just like general counselors and understand like what all your options are for majors. And I think like I didn't really do that. I went in as a dance major knowing like I was going to change my major to like something within business, but I wasn't really sure. And if I could go back now, I would have done a completely different major, like knowing what I know. So I think it's really just like thinking about that, and like no one really, you might know what you want to do exactly. I personally didn't. I know a lot of my friends didn't, but trying to really like find that within your first year, I think is really important. And there are a lot of resources there, and like utilize the advisors and counselors.
Yeah, I think that one thing Wisconsin has that's like genuinely amazing is how like the counselors and like academic advisors are just super amazing. Like I think a big tip would be to like create your or like pick out your classes with your academic advisor. I did that and she like helped me. I had like a list of classes I thought I needed to take and it was like completely wrong. It's a little confusing. So I think picking them out with your counselor or academic advisor would be really helpful for me. I mean, it was helpful for me. So yeah.
Great.
One thing I would say is just like when you get on campus and whatnot, when you're just starting, is to just befriend anyone and everyone, because everyone is, well, not everyone, but 99% of people are in the exact same boat where it's just like, one person or, 5 people or whatever. And what I basically relied on was mostly just the people in my dorm. Like I got really close with all the people on my floor, which was fantastic. And, I'm still friends with a lot of people that were in my dorm freshman year. But, there are all these people in your freshman classes that are in the exact same boat as you, and they might be even cooler people, even more like-minded people. And it's obviously like super uncomfortable for some people to just like lean over to the person next to them in this 300-person lecture or whatever it is, and just, introduce yourself and whatnot. But I think it's really cool how everyone just feels the exact same way, and everyone's really excited to be there and really nervous at the same time, and everyone's super friendly. So I would just, reach out to anyone and everyone.
Yeah, definitely. One last question that I want to ask before I open it up to the students to ask some questions that they maybe have coming into this. We just talked about the best thing about Wisconsin. What is a regret that you have? I mean, I guess Lizzie, you kind of spoke about you did like best and worst in the same. But is there a regret that any of you have? Or I mean, Sydney, you've only been there for a year, so I'm not sure if you have already experienced regrets. If so, feel free to share.
I guess I'll start. So yeah, one of my regrets was my major. I'm really happy that I did business and I did marketing. I think it's a great major to come out of school with. If I could go back, I would have done some sort of engineering. I don't know. I think you can just create a lot of opportunity from that. And just what I've been learning, like from, being out of college at this point. I know it's completely different. Another thing is, I don't know, I feel like be really open to like just meeting everyone, like Josh had said. I know, especially coming from a place like Milken, people really like to stay in that like kind of Jewish bubble, which like totally it's very comfortable. But I think I personally definitely tried to branch out, and I think I like did a good job with that. I think for me, it would have been like also like maybe giving my sorority more of a chance, because I was so close-minded to like not stick in this bubble. So really just like giving everyone a chance and like being really open-minded about everything that you go into school with.
So I live in a no, I don't live in a dorm. I live in a like apartment dorm type thing called Statesider, and it's basically like Lizzie was saying, like this Jewish bubble. And I honestly I don't regret living in, I mean, a little part of me regrets living in this building just because I felt like I came to college and was just kind of felt like Milken again with like a bunch of Jews, like Jewish kids that like are from New York, LA, and Chicago. So I had to like really put an effort in to branch out and meet people from like different areas of the country and like who live in the dorm. So I would just really recommend living in the dorms if you can. Yeah.
I also lived in Statesider. It was a great time, but like Sydney said, I mean, it's just a bunch of Coasties and Jews, which, you know, they're fantastic people, but you know, some of my closest friends are kids from Minnesota who, you know, were in the normal dorms. I was lucky that a couple of the kids that, or a good handful of them that were in my fraternity were in like the public dorm, so I would just spend a lot of time over there and meet all these other people. So yeah, just kind of tying into just meet a bunch of people because you never know who you'll actually, you know, most like spending time with. In terms of regrets, I don't know. It's kind of hard. I don't think I have too many. I really loved my experience. I ended up becoming a psych major like halfway through my sophomore year or something. Not for any good reason. I thought I wanted to go in doing business and then like took some business courses and wasn't super into it. And ended up like thinking maybe econ, maybe psychology, and I just chose psych and it worked out. Kind of what Lizzie was saying as to like what's useful in the real world. For most of your majors that you're going to choose, it's like doesn't matter. It's like you be a psych major, you could be a anything major, and like I work in something completely unrelated to psychology. So for the most part, it's like whatever you're interested in, whatever you think will be fun and whatever be cool in college, like just pursue it and you'll still be able to get a job after. If you want to be like a software engineer or something, like take computer science classes, which my mom tried to get me to do forever and I never listened to her. And now I think it'd be a really good idea if I had done that. So I would say just taking courses that obviously like you want to complete your major and graduate on time, but just taking things that sound interesting to you. You never know what'll really pique your interest. And then also I had a lot of friends that stayed in Madison over the summer. It wasn't really for me, I didn't think, because I like used to go to summer camp and I spent time there. And then I was like, okay, shoot, like I'm a junior now, I need to get an internship, like do all this, whatever. But I had friends that stayed in Madison over the summer and had internships there. And Madison is absolutely fantastic all year round, but you get like 4 weeks of wonderful weather when you get there at the beginning of the year, and then 6 weeks of wonderful weather at the end, 2 of which you're like just in the library studying. So if I could spend more time, you know, out on the lake just in the summer in Madison, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, I can imagine it's a big transition going from LA to winters in Wisconsin, but you all survived. I'm curious for the current students, any questions that you had coming into this? We have a couple seniors and a good mix of seniors and juniors. And I welcome you to share any questions you all have. If you just want to unmute, feel free to go for it.
I have a question.
Okay, Seth, are you a junior or senior?
Yeah, I'm a senior. I was wondering for people looking to go into business or people that are already in business, if they could speak on like if it's easy to change your major, or if I got into pre-business, if it would be like a good option to take economics if I didn't get into the business program after reapplying after freshman year.
Oh,
Go ahead.
okay.
No,
So if you're pre-business, so even just going in pre-business, there's like, I think 4 like prereqs they make you take, and econ is one of them. It's like macro and then micro. I had actually taken one my freshman going into sophomore summer through SMC, and they were like, it doesn't count because like if you're applying to the business school, you have to do it through some sort of Wisconsin school. So it didn't have to be Madison, but it had to be one of the like UWs. But I appealed it and it was fine. So I would recommend taking what you can. Like if you're taking like an AP econ, like do it and like get the 4 or 5, whatever you need to like pass out of it. It will help you a lot. I took calc and psychology AP and I did not pass out of calc, but psychology I did, which was great. And also once you're in the business school, it's very easy to change majors, I believe. I think it just depends what the major is, because I know I went straight into marketing, but I want to say there are certain majors that could be harder. I think it just depends. I don't know if you know more about this, Josh.
I think the biggest difficulty and hurdle in terms of changing majors is if you're not in the business school yet and having to apply to the business school to be a business major. But in terms of if econ's just like a good one to take, even if you don't end up deciding that you want to be in business or don't get into business school or whatever, maybe my favorite class, definitely my favorite professor I ever had was like Econ 101. It wasn't called 101, it was like 201 or something. But it was like freshman year econ, and it was my favorite professor I had at all of Madison. His name is David Johnson. Write it down. He's awesome. And it's just like, I don't know if it was actually needed for the psych major, but it's just like econ's a good thing to have under your belt anyway, just to be worldly and understand how things work. So, I mean, even if you don't end up going business or don't end up getting into the business school, it's a good thing to have under your belt.
Yeah, I thought I was gonna apply to the business school when I first got there, so I had to take Econ 101, I think. And it was hard, but it was honestly a good class. And I didn't end up needing it, but it was still a good class.
Yeah, and all like any class you take, like my whole first semester was like all dance classes because I was a dance major. They all counted like towards my electives. So like all the classes you take, like even if you don't need it for your major, like hopefully it will like count towards something.
Great, thanks. Any other questions you all had coming into this? Okay, I have one. Are there any favorite traditions from your time at Wisconsin that you can speak to and give us a sense of the school spirit and in that sense?
Josh. Okay. I mean, I think like speaking for everyone who went to Wisconsin, I think the biggest thing is like the jump around. I don't know if any of you know about it. At every Wisconsin football game, they play jump around and like the stadium like absolutely goes like insane. And it's just like one of the like biggest things to do like when you're at Wisconsin. And also whenever you have a test, there's like the statue of Abe Lincoln. Everyone like rubs his foot. It's supposed to be like good luck.
I feel like every college has like some random statue where you're like rubbing it.
Mhm.
It's like it's nice to know what it is at Wisconsin. Any other traditions, Josh?
I was just gonna say jump around is like the one that comes to mind. It's like known as the best tradition in all of collegiate sports. So if America says so, it's really fun. But it's so popular and it's so significant that it gets to the point where like people are tailgating and they're like, oh crap, it's almost third quarter. We need to get to the stadium. And then they get there and the third quarter ends and then they do jump around and then everyone leaves. Right. It's like people like even if people that don't care about football at all, they go for 5 minutes to make sure that they jump around. And then I think another one, it's not really like a school tradition, but Friday after class was the thing where just everyone, I'm sure it still is, everyone just like goes and spends some leisure time outside of the classroom, hanging out, having a good time after the hard school week.
Great, thanks. Thanks for sending in another question, Seth. I'll read it aloud for the recording. Can anyone talk about working during school and if it's possible to balance schoolwork with work?
Yeah, I can speak to that. I mean, I think it depends what type of work you're talking about. Like throughout school, I did like retail jobs, like hosting jobs, like that kind of stuff. So, I think like I really got to make a lot of my own schedules and like it wasn't too bad. I think it just depends how much you want to work and like there's so much opportunity to do like student work type stuff. I had looked into some internships, but I didn't end up doing that. But it really wasn't that bad. And I had other friends too that worked like multiple days a week and everyone was able to balance everything pretty well.
Okay, great. Any other questions? Or Josh, were you gonna say something?
No, I was just gonna echo that. you know, as long as you're not taking a terrible amount of units and your, you know, work hours aren't super constrictive. I know a lot of people that were like working all throughout school, and also the university itself has a lot of jobs for students. So it's pretty easy to get something, at least looking at the university.
Yeah, definitely. I had a couple jobs in college, and it was nice to kind of like have a life beyond just academics and my school and my friends, and just to do something a little different. Ethan, were you gonna ask something?
Yeah, actually, regarding internships. So, obviously, you talked about jobs and there being a lot of local areas to get opportunities for that. And I just wanted to know what it's like for getting internships in the area or applying for internships around the world over the summer.
Yeah, internships in the area, there's a lot. I had friends that like interned at the Capitol, and like friends that interned, I don't even know what she did, but yeah, there's a ton because you're in the Capitol. So like if you want to do anything in like politics or whatnot, like that was not something that interested me. But I had a friend who like knew she wanted to go to law school after, and she worked like I don't even know where it was, but something kind of related to that. And like they all got internships like fairly easy. And like Josh had mentioned, like there's a lot of opportunity. Like there's a student job board, and it has like all these internships. Even talking to professors and counselors, they have a lot of resources too, and especially for things in the area. For internships, like in the summer, I mean, I mostly did it like myself through like networking. And just knowing what I really wanted to do and like applying for internships. I don't know how things have changed with like COVID. I mean, you guys are going to be going, I forgot, like you're not there yet. So hopefully things will like be back to normal by that point. But yeah, I mean, like, again, it's the same thing with like just work stuff. Like there's a lot of resources there. With summer internships, they have career fairs. I think it's like pretty early in the year, like October. They're usually more for juniors and seniors, but I think I went when I was like a sophomore. And that's usually like when they'll like vet for internships, and like there will be like reps there being like, this is our summer internship program. And like I remember talking to like a couple people, companies, I think it was like Macy's and stuff. So I think it also depends on your major, because I know like internship wise, some companies have like specific programs where they like you apply for the internship super early on in the year, and others it's like a month before or something. So I think it also depends on what you want to do. But again, it's just utilizing like the school resources and like people, you know, it's really all about networking.
Basically everything that Lizzie said, but also Madison, especially around the Capitol, there's kind of like a mini incubator almost for a lot of small startups. I have a number of friends that worked at like, or intern at like 5 or 6 person companies, from like computer science, software engineering stuff to like sports radio. So a number of different options, and a lot of small up and coming companies in the area. So that as well.
Also, like for my major, I mean, it's mandatory. Like I need to find an internship like junior or senior year, and like there's different requirements. But there are a ton of resources. Like my major is paired with Kohl's and like other big retailers. So there are definitely a lot of amazing opportunities.
Great, thanks for speaking to that. Any other questions from current students? I know we just had another one join. Leah, yeah, what's up?
I was just wondering if any of you studied abroad, and if so, how was your experience with that?
Josh, go ahead.
I studied abroad. I was in Barcelona. It was second semester of my junior year. I went through there was a Wisconsin program as opposed to like third party, and it was, I think it was technically liberal arts and business, but it was called IES Abroad, and there were a number of other like schools that partnered that were also a part of the program with Wisconsin. And I did a homestay, so I lived in you know, a local's home with a couple other kids as well. It was awesome. I loved it. It was very cool. A lot of even more freedom than you have in college because you're like halfway across the world from your friends and family. I had a few kids that I was close with that you know, came on the same program, and then also I just made just a huge number of new friends there because it's kind of like freshman year all over again, in the sense that everyone's super excited to be there, and most people don't know more than, you know, a couple people, and all the experiences are new for everyone. So definitely recommend. I have friends that went basically everywhere, so it's pretty far away, but if you ever have any thoughts on where you might want to go and want, you know, someone's input that has to go on there, I'm sure I can put you in touch with someone.
Yeah, so I also studied abroad in Barcelona. I was on a different program though. So there were, I think, like 3 programs through Wisconsin. Some study abroad programs, like Josh mentioned, are like third parties, like fully outside of your school. But Wisconsin made it really easy that, like, depending on your major, a lot of them had specific programs. So like I basically went through the business school. My program was like a lot smaller, I believe, than the other 2. I think it's like CEA and like what Josh's was IES. Mine was like a third of the size, which was kind of nice, but I stayed in dorms, and my dorms were like a 10-minute walk from the beach. You each had like your own bedroom, and it was like individual bedrooms, and bath, and then like a shared kitchen, and like only some people did apartments. So many people I talked to said like that was the way to go. Abroad was like definitely like the best 4 months of my life. Like I had the best time. The thing I disagree with on Josh was that, you know, everyone there was from the US and like from other schools. Like so many kids that went to IU and Penn State. There were like hundreds of them. So that was the only thing I think for me that was like, I didn't really feel like I got like very immersed in the culture because like all the people I was hanging out with were like from the States. I think that also just depends on where you go. Barcelona is like one of the biggest programs and like top places that people go. But you know, I think like I chose it because I wanted like a really big city. I wanted to be somewhere that was like similar to LA. I wanted to be by the beach. And I heard like you can have a lot of fun and it's easy to travel from. So, you know, I think it just depends. And I think like if you're thinking about abroad, I think really think about like broadening your horizons. And like I had some friends that like went to Hong Kong and like Singapore and stuff like that, and like if I could go back, like I absolutely loved abroad, but like I think I would have liked to push myself out of my comfort zone even more.
Yeah, and I wonder how different it might have been too. Like Josh, you said you stayed with a family there. That might immerse you a little bit more intensely as well. But yeah, that's really insightful experiences for you guys to speak on. Thanks. Any other questions? Thanks for asking, some great ones already. I have another. This is kind of a specific to Wisconsin question, or I guess just big schools, Midwest, Greek life, D1 sports. I mean, why Wisconsin over Michigan or Indiana? Like what in your experience kind of separates that experience at Wisconsin? That were you considering other like big flagship universities in the Midwest, and what made Wisconsin ultimately be the place that you decided to matriculate?
So I was committed to Indiana before I got off the wait list at Wisconsin. And I also applied to Michigan State. I really just like wanted like a big school, but Madison itself is just it's like probably top 5, if not like the best college town in the country. Like you go there and you fall in love immediately. It's just how it is. Everyone says that, and it's like completely true. And for me, it was different because I didn't really get to visit Michigan State and or like a lot of other schools that I applied to, but I had been to Wisconsin, so I like that felt comfortable for me. But yeah, Matt, like you just fall in love. Like there's just a feeling you get when you get on campus, and school that I was like worried about, also academics and like balancing my time with social stuff. And I knew people at Wisconsin and they were like doing so well, and it was just called my name. I don't know.
Yeah, I would say that Wisconsin just kind of has it all in terms of, Indiana, like Lizzie was saying, it's like the town kind of feels like it's not as centralized. And while they do share that like Big Ten school spirit, that sort of thing, I think what Sydney was saying about Madison just really rings true. It's like the best college town. People also really like Ann Arbor. I'm not one of them. I might be a little biased, but I did go to Michigan a couple of times just to visit for like football games and stuff. And I had friends that went there, and I just didn't really feel that same, feeling about the campus and about the college town and whatnot. And obviously, I definitely am biased, but I like actually got chills just now when Cindy was talking about Madison. It's so fantastic. So what Lizzie was saying before about maybe needing to take an extra year if you don't figure out your major, that's a good thing. Just stay there as long as possible.
Never leave.
Yeah, so I mean, like Sydney said, I think the moment I like drove through between the two lakes and like you see the Capitol, also the sunset is like always like the most gorgeous thing you'll ever see. But I think for me, like I knew I wanted to go, like I said, a Big Ten school. Michigan I thought was just a little like out of my reach academically. There was nothing about it that really like held me back. With Indiana, my brother actually went to Indiana and he went for 3 months and absolutely hated it. And I went to move him in. And when I went to move him in, I was like, this is just not the school for me. Like, I just knew that from the moment I walked on campus. I, throughout college, visited also both Michigan and IU throughout the time. IU was also extremely spread out. So like, if you don't have a car there, it's really hard to get around. I know like the frats have like pledge drivers, or I don't know, it's called something, but they like make the freshmen like drive everyone around. But yeah, that's like not how it is in Wisconsin at all. Like you can walk everywhere. The camaraderie is just like so different. I think Michigan is also has kind of more of a competitiveness to it. I know whenever sometimes I'll talk to my friends that went there, they have a little more of an ego compared to the people that went to Wisconsin and IU. I still love them. They're great people and they're all great schools though. But definitely Wisconsin over all of them.
All right, if there's anything we're taking away tonight. But I appreciate all of you speaking about the fact, and I hadn't necessarily thought about this as such a defining thing of being in a capital city, right? Like I haven't actually been to Madison myself and visited the campus, but I've been to Indiana, and like the town Bloomington like thrives on having the college there, whereas I imagine Madison, it's like a capital city. If they have a college, that's great, and they also have like life and businesses and a whole world beyond the college as well. So that's such a defining quality that I hadn't necessarily thought of with Wisconsin.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely still like entrenched in the school. Like you can definitely still feel that, but not like nearly as much as like Indiana and Michigan.
Yeah, in Bloomington, it felt like if there was no college, like in the summers might be a little dead there, without college kids around. Any other final questions from the current students? Thank you for those of you who've asked them. I really appreciate it. Nothing left that you need to know about Wisconsin while we have some amazing alum here. Okay, well, if you do think of any, I don't know, Sydney, Josh, and Lizzie, I think we have your contact info. I don't know if you're comfortable with us giving out to students, but we could always pass that along if that's something that you're okay with. I guess a final question for me would just be, is there anything that you like feel like students need to know about Wisconsin that we haven't yet covered? I'm glad that a question about study abroad was brought up because I hadn't necessarily known that was part of some of your experiences. Any like final words of wisdom around the college application process in general or things to know about Wisconsin?
I would just say that, at least personally, the winters were not as bad as I expected. It's like you get one good coat and you're good. And they have buses if you really don't want to walk to class. There's free buses that take you all around campus. So if that's the one thing that you're not so sure about, it's bearable. Don't worry.
Sydney, Lizzie, any final words of wisdom?
I don't know. I feel like I touched through like so much. I guess one more thing, like when it comes to academic stuff, like because it is a public school and like there are like 40,000 kids there, like if you need help like figuring out anything, like you have to be on your shit of like reaching out to advisors and stuff. Like they're not really always going to contact you. So like if you want that extra help, like it's there for you, but like you have to go out and like do it yourself. Like Milken, I feel like you come from a school that like they're very like much more on top of you, like it is a private school. You're not really going to get the same kind of attention at Wisconsin because it is a public and big school. So just like kind of being on top of that, but I feel like I went through everything.
Yeah, thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I think that's something that we touched on a lot last year during this panel, was just like difference between public and private. Like it's not just Wisconsin, it's like most public versus private. Like my brother went to Northwestern, small private, still Big Ten, so like kind of similar, except just a whole heck of a lot smaller. And there's just like a lot more hand holding. Like if you want an internship, like just go in and they'll find you one, as opposed to like there are all these resources for you. So like Lizzie said, like you just have to be on top of your stuff, and like all the resources are still there for you. It's just that they won't email you saying like your signed field trip slip is late. You have to go check it out yourself.
Yeah, not as much hand holding. Were there I'm actually this raises a question I meant to ask, and then we'll get to Sydney's final advice. Transitioning from such small classes at Milken to big lecture halls, like at one point Josh, you're like, yeah, just lean over to the guy who's one of the 300 people in the lecture hall. Like, what was that transition like in terms of navigating the academic environment in such a big landscape?
Well, I have not experienced like a big lecture hall yet, but I have really big Zoom classes, and it's already a lot different than Milken. You're kind of more on your own, and like we use Canvas, which is kind of like my Milken, but you do assignments on Canvas, and yeah, it took a little bit to figure out like a rhythm for each of my classes, but I think the transition was pretty good. I think Milken prepares you well.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's probably a little different for you, Sydney, since you're online. To say like in person, I remember just like walking into like a huge classroom, and I didn't feel like that crazily overwhelmed because like there's a lecturer there and like you can ask questions. I know sometimes it could be a little intimidating, but you can. And usually those big classes have discussion groups, so like you have that, and then you have like discussion or something like once or twice a week. And so I mean, also with that is like they're not taking attendance in those class unless some have like these like clicker things. I don't even know what they are, but you can like literally just like never go to class and no one would say anything and like you wouldn't know. So like that's one thing, is like being very independent, and like you like it's kind of important. I don't know, I think it depends on your class too. There were some classes I could get away with not going to lecture and be fine with discussion, and others that like that would not fly at all. But like it's up to you to figure that out and decide like what you want to do. I feel like going from such small classes to big classes, like they were only really like that's only for your like prereqs and your like really like main big classes. I feel like even like from freshman year I had classes that were like 10 to 15 people because they know that like for the harder classes like they want it to be a less amount of people. So I didn't think it was too hard of a switch.
Josh?
Yeah, I would say that like my biggest ones, like Lizzie was saying, was like Econ 101, like those very early ones that most freshmen have to take. And then in that case, there's always a discussion section. So you might be in lecture with 200 kids, but then you go to the discussion section, it's like 10 to 15. So that's good for a couple of things. Like one, if you're not comfortable raising your hand in front of everyone and asking a clarifying question, you can always talk to the TA during the discussion section. Also, professors love it when you go to office hours, which, like, to be frank, I didn't really do that much, but definitely a really great resource, and you should, because I mean, there's experts and super smart, and then it's just one-on-one time with them. And then they also like you, and then they'll be able to remember you out of the 200 in their class. But then also, like Lizzie was saying, I had classes that were like literally 7 people. So you get the big, you get the small, and there are definitely pros and cons to both. But the biggest thing with the big classes, like Lizzie was saying, is just, again, with the independence, like no one's going to say, hey, Josh, you weren't at class, like you need to come to class and learn, like it's on you. And I'm sure it's like very similar, even more so with Zoom, right? So it's just all about being independent, being responsible.
Yeah.
Office hours were the best thing ever too. I went to office hours all the time. Not so much freshman year, but like later into like the business school, I lived in office hours and the professors appreciate it too.
Sydney, you get the last word. Any final parting words about the transition or the process you want to speak to?
I would just say if you're deciding between Wisconsin and another school, I mean, I'm biased, but like go to Wisconsin. You will not regret anything. Like the best people, the best city, the best academics, the best food, the best everything. It's just I could cry. It's just like an amazing place.
Glad you're living the dream.
Yeah.
Thank you to the alum for being here with us, and thank you for the current students for taking their time from their evening as well. Josh and Lizzie, it was lovely to meet you both. Sydney, great to see you as always. I'm gonna stop